Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Owl House review brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And the newest episode, Them's the Breaks Kids, has recently premiered, and this was a ton of fun to watch. This episode is almost all just a massive flashback. It's the flashback of how Eda met Raine. And it really is just a ton of fun. One of the things I love about this episode is just Principal Bump. But back when he was Vice Principal Bump. You know what? I said it before and I'll say it again. This is the administrator that every school should have. Someone who has faith in his kids no matter how old or jaded he gets. Someone who cares about teaching. And honestly, though he's a bit of a stickler for the rules, you know that he only has the best interests of the kids at heart. And so, yeah, Principal Bump, I love you, man. And honestly, this episode just gives us a wonderful amount of insight into not just the life of Eda, but the life in Bonesboro, what it once was, because the image that we get through Luz's eyes shows a world that is beginning to fall apart. It's clear that the cantankerous touch of Emperor Bellows has really taken hold in Luz's time there on the Boiling Isles, and that Bonesboro is not what it once was. Even Hexside looked a whole lot rosier and better, and we get to see the teenage lives, or at least we get a glimpse of the teenage lives of many of the characters that we've gotten to know throughout the series. And it's just great to see that once upon a time they were kids and that they acted as such. It is just, it's pretty beautiful. But ultimately, the real heart of this episode is how Eda and Raine met. I love how Eda is just, she is the best troublemaker. She would work so well with the Weasley twins. And her moment right there with the principal, I'm like, wow, I thought I had done more. He's like, I have kept a record of everything you've done so I could understand the evil that is within the hearts of children. As a teacher, I know kids like Eda, and I know teachers like the principal. So, it's fantastic. But because Eda's been too much of a troublemaker, she now risks expulsion, so she has to redeem herself by winning a blue ribbon for Hexside in this crazy free-for-all of witches for the Emperor's Coven. And yet, it's really not what she thought it would be until Madam Snapdragon reappears. And I love how we get to see that this lady was already nuts and evil to begin with, but man, you gotta love her flair. Honestly, I do. And I really enjoy how she basically sets up this whole, like, Tri-Wizard tournament kind of thing that the kids have to participate in. And it just gets nutty. But here is where Eda meets Raine. And honestly, this little meet cute, because that's really what it is, just works so well, where we get to see their personalities, especially as kids, just shine and flourish. It's really tastefully done. It's really well pulled off. We get to see where the chemistry is between these two strangers and how they build into a far more trusting relationship. There's a lot of similarities between the two of them that brings them together, but also plenty of differences that balance each other out. And that's really, really neat to see. And we get to see how they form a great friendship and partnership as they strive to beat the system that Madam Snapdragon has set up, and they succeed. And really, it's really, really great. Now then, we do have to understand also the two things that kind of bookend this episode. The first of which is that we get to see that Luz is still kind of falling apart a little bit as she's trying to discover more spells from Emperor Bellows, or as she still thinks of him as Philip Woodabane. And we see that she is not doing as well as she had hoped. And you know what? This makes total sense. I feel like this actually is a really good connection to the previous episode. And I'm fine with that. Even though I had a lot of problems with the last episode, this was a good connection. It was a good follow through. And then the other bookend to this is that we get to see that Raine is not as mind controlled as we thought. Raine is very much in control of their own faculties and is working very likely with Darius to undermine Emperor Bellows. And we're beginning to see yet more of what the Day of Unity means. Now we have very good confirmation that it is meant to be a magic draining spell. And I honestly think that if we look back to season 1, we can see what the Emperor is trying to do right here. As I've said before, I really do believe that what we call artificial magic is actually stolen magic, and that Emperor Belos has been working with this particular kind of magic and technology in the hopes of restoring the Titan. This would then make a whole lot of sense. He's not just simply getting rid of magic because he hates magic. No, he's going to steal everyone's magic for a massive spell, the restoration of the Titan. And what that's going to mean, what that's going to look like, we don't yet fully know. I mean, we kind of have a glimpse from a deleted scene that the Titan is going to be restored, stand up and walk onto Earth, but really what exactly is it that Belos is after? We still don't fully understand, and neither does Raine or Darius. They just know that everyone's magic is going to be stripped from them. We also see that the traitors within the Emperor's Coven don't really know what to do to stop this. Belos is always ahead. He's always a step ahead. Even to Raine, who is pretending to be brainwashed and everything, even Raine realizes that they can't just simply go and undermine the Emperor. They will need Eda's help. They will need Luz's help. But Raine isn't willing to put Eda into danger. Now then, I'm going to get into why I think this ending, while it was really, really cool, is a horrible contradiction of something that we have seen before. And I'll get into that later on here in the video. But that's the overall review of it and the summary, and it's good. It's a really, really good, strong episode. Now, let me get to the real heavy stuff of my review and my analysis of this episode. I've said a little while back that I was not a huge fan of the relationship that was posed for Raine and Eda. I like Raine's character, I like Eda's character, I just don't like the relationship that they are purported to have. And every time it gets brought up in the series thus far, I've just not been a fan of it. It just feels super forced. And when I've voiced my concerns, I've had a fair number of people reach out to me and say, hey, look, Dana's got an episode coming up that is meant to address these issues. Don't worry, watch it, and it's going to be great. You're going to love it. And I did love this episode, but have I been won over to Raine and Eda as a romantic couple? Well, let's see. Again, allow me to reiterate my opinion here on the situation. Like I said, I really like Raine's character, I really like Eda's character, but when I saw the episode, Eda's Requiem, I was just seriously annoyed, because their whole romantic relationship and all their history just really comes out of nowhere, and it was absolutely crammed down our throats. There was no preparation for it, we were just told to accept it and move on. Now then, while I might be willing to give that approach the benefit of the doubt, the way that it culminated was just, it was bad, because the two of them then decide that they are going to, like Romeo and Juliet, die together in order to take out some other coven heads. And I was like, wait a second, this just got really, really heavy. Eda, you've got people to take care of. Raine, are you sure that this is the best idea? Like, it was just a really stupid move on both of their parts. Once again, it came out of nowhere. It was forced. The music was beautiful, the animation was gorgeous, but the content sucked. I'm sorry, it did. Eda's Requiem is the weakest episode, in my opinion, so far for Season 2. And honestly, much of that comes down to the fact that this romance is pitched to us with the absolute minimal amount of explanation, and the writers just expect us to jump on board with this without context or reasoning to convince us why this relationship is worth rooting for, other than, hey, these characters are really, really great. Yes, but two great characters does not a good couple make. And it is a very dangerous path to take if you want people to be sold on this couple. Now, there have been some couples that I did initially really dislike, and I was eventually won over to them. A big one for me is actually the Mistborn's core pairing of Vin and Elend. I love Vin, I love Elend, but I originally did not love the idea of them getting together. Ellen just had way too much personal baggage and stuff they had to go through, and Vin didn't need a love interest. She already had so much on her plate, and she didn't need no man to complete her. That was the way that I saw it. It took me until the third book in the trilogy to really accept their romance, and in retrospect, it actually made Vin and Ellen as a couple work out really, really well, but it did take some time to sell me on it, I will admit. Another couple that I didn't like in the beginning was Yugo and Amalia from Wakfu. I thought that Amalia was just too annoying and that Yugo had way better chemistry with many of the other female characters throughout seasons 1 and 2. However, the OVAs really focusing on their relationship and why Yugo had fallen for Amalia, and seeing that Amalia is slowly developing feelings for Yugo was really, really great. And that's what won me over to their will they, won't they relationship and had me rooting for them all the way up until the end of Season 3. So, what's won me over to relationships that I originally started off hating or rejecting? Well, it comes down to Camille's Harem's commandments on shipping. They're not just great qualifiers for a good, healthy ship, but they are also great conditions for any good fictional relationship that is canon. So let's have a look at our 10 rules. Rule number 1, chemistry is key. Rule 2, all ships are garbage until proven otherwise. Rule 3, build up and payoff are directly related. Rule 4, treat all ships equally. Rule 5, the endgame is not the ship setting sail. Rule 6, romance is multifaceted. Rule 7, make your characters equals in their relationship. Rule 8, relationships do not exist in a vacuum. Rule 9, shipping is not just about the smut. And Rule 10, respect other people's ships. And we've recently added a new one, that any good relationship elevates the characters. It doesn't complete them. So, going into this episode, the people told me would be the one to win me over to Raine and Eda. I had to step back and divorce myself from my initial bias and prejudice towards their relationship and judge what I saw here based on our rules of shipping. And what I have to say is this. Boom! Yes! Eda and Raine. I love the setup for their friendship right here. It hits on all the good points that we have here in the list. We see how these two characters elevate each other. They don't complete each other. We see how they are equals in their nerdiness, their awkwardness, and their awesomeness. And we also see that there's real build-up and payoff in this episode to their relationship as they work together to then overcome all of their struggles and to end up becoming really great friends at Hexside. Honestly, all the good stuff is here. And we also, of course, we get the little bit of blushing. However, I really don't like it when people misinterpret blushings in animation, because honestly, there's a whole lot of blushing that people do for a variety of reasons. Don't just say because a character blushes that they suddenly have romantic feelings. But understanding where this relationship is going, that's a good little visual key to see Eda connecting with Raine. So honestly, all of the good stuff is here. And I'm going to say, had this episode come out earlier as kind of like a sampler of what was to come when we finally actually got to meet Raine, had this been delivered earlier or in some other kind of way, I would be totally on board for this relationship. I could even forgive to a larger extent what I saw in Eda's Requiem at the very end. The thing is this, having first seen where Eda and Raine ended up as a couple and then going back to the past and seeing who they were, this was a very tricky gamble. And it probably pays off for a lot of people, but for me, it doesn't really. Because again, I've seen Eda's Requiem. I think that this would require really a long conversation with probably some other people to get in some good perspective on why or why not this episode might work. But for me, again, just knowing that the two of them decide that they're going to commit magical suicide in a desperate attempt to end Belos's plan, something that you immediately recognize is just not going to work, and yet they go through it anyway, even though on Eda's part especially, it's just a bad idea. It makes no sense. What happened in between? We've been shown the beginning, we've been shown the end with just a small smattering of details in between about them playing together as friends and when they broke up, but there's nothing else. And without more context, without more information, without more scenes to see the two of them develop as a romantic couple, we can't actually say that this was a good conclusion in Eda's Requiem. So, honestly, this episode, it leaves me in kind of a strange position, where I'm like, young Eda and Raine, fantastic. Again, this episode is just super good, super strong. I love it. But knowing where they end up is heartbreaking, but also maddeningly confusing, because I can barely English thinking about this right here, because it was just a bad choice on the part of the showrunners, because without proper connection between these 2 points, again, it just makes Eda's Requiem just look awful. And then, by further connection, the ending right here where Raine's like, no, I will not put Eda in danger. Hello, buddy, you were willing to sacrifice her to take down Bellows, and now no? Well, it's probably because Raine has a heart and realizes that Eda has other responsibilities, even if Eda hasn't yet forgiven herself and has been able to move on from the sins of her past and everything like that. But come on, Raine, come on. If you are going to try to take down the Emperor, you have to involve your ex. You have to bring Eda back into the fold and work things out with her. You can't avoid this anymore. And the fact that this is just all danced around, no, I'm sorry. And once again, it's just because it all comes back to Eda's Requiem. Knowing to the extent that these two went, and seeing how that contradicts a lot of who they once were and who they now are afterwards, it's just that one episode, if we could somehow remove Eda's Requiem from the equation, or if we could seriously overhaul that episode, or at least certain aspects of it, then this whole Eda and Raine relationship would absolutely work. But because of that one bump right there, it's like the fly in the ointment. And so, yeah, I know at this point I'm probably just getting picky, but it's something that I really wanted to point to, because when the show does a really great job with Luz and Amity building up a great, fantastic LGBTQ relationship, and they could do the same thing with Eda and Raine, the difference is stark. And one is healthy and the other one is obviously not. And I think there's a really great lesson that could be pulled out here within the show if they were willing to take a very risky step and come out and say that. But because I know they're not, the opportunity is lost, and instead we're getting saddled with an unhealthy relationship and told that is A-okay, which flies in the face of everything we got with Lumity. So yeah, I gotta calm down a little bit, I gotta calm down, collect myself a little bit. Again, them's the breaks, kids. This is actually a fantastic episode. It is a flashback episode. Really well done. Wonderful pacing. Wonderful characterization. So much good stuff happening in it. I would love to see more. In fact, you know what, Disney? What I want, I don't just want a proper season 3 for the Owl House. I want a spin-off series of Eda as a young girl at Hexside. I want that story. Make it happen. Alright, that's going to be all from me for now, all of my ranting, analysis, and review. Please tell me what you thought about this episode. If you agree with me or if you disagree with me, I would love to hear what you got to say, and I will happily talk with you down in the comment section. Meanwhile, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here on YouTube. Please also check out our podcast episodes, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We also have writing exercises over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice writers. Links for all of that and more are down in the description. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.